I still remember the sound my phone made that morning, that soft, persistent buzz that shattered the calm of my perfectly ordinary Thursday. I was sitting by the window of my townhouse in Seattle, the city still wrapped in a misty drizzle, sipping black coffee from a mug that read, Mrs. Bennett, St. 2018. My silk blouse clung lightly to my skin, warm from the sunlight streaming in, and for a moment, everything in my life felt beautifully steady. Then the notification popped up. It was a tag on social media, a photo of my sister, Madison, smiling beside a wedding dress boutique. The caption read, "Helping another bride find her dream gown." I stared at it for a long moment. My pulse quickened, not from anger, but from something older, the echo of a wound I'd buried years ago. Madison had always been the golden one, the center of attention, the sister who knew how to make every room revolve around her. And yet, that one day, the day before my wedding, she'd nearly destroyed everything I loved. I leaned back in my chair, watching the rain slide down the glass. Funny how time heals the surface but leaves the scar beneath. My hand brushed over the smooth diamond on my finger. She doesn't know I forgave her, but she also doesn't know what I became after she broke me. My phone buzzed again, this time a message from her. "Can we talk?" The past was no longer a memory. It was knocking. 5 years ago, everything in my world revolved around white lace, roses, and countdown calendars. I was 2 days away from marrying Daniel, the kind of man who made the world feel safe, the kind of love story I'd once thought only existed in books. My sister, Madison, was my maid of honor. She smiled through every dress fitting, every cake tasting, every late-night phone call when I freaked out about centerpieces. I believe her excitement was real. Looking back, I should have noticed the cracks. The way she'd sigh when someone called me the prettier one now, the way her compliments were edged with tiny barbs, "You look beautiful, even in that simple dress." Or how she rolled her eyes whenever Daniel slipped his arm around me. Madison hated to share the spotlight, even with family, especially with me. The day before my wedding, I remember humming while I walked into the guest room where my dress hung. It was everything I'd ever dreamed: ivory silk, hand-beaded lace cascading like soft rain down the skirt. My mother's veil rested beside it, the one she'd worn in her own wedding. But when I unzipped the garment bag, the sound that came out of my throat didn't even sound human. The delicate lace had been slashed, cut clean through, from the waist to the hem. The bodice hung in shreds. My hands shook as I touched the fabric, the reality sinking in. Someone had done this deliberately. And deep down, I already knew who. When I confronted Madison, she didn't deny it. Her voice trembled, but her eyes were cold. "You've always gotten everything, Claire. Just once, I wanted something to be about me." I felt the air leave my body. All the years of sisterhood, shared secrets, late-night talks, laughter, reduced to jealousy and cruelty. That night, I locked myself in the room and cried until my makeup stained the pillow. But then I remembered my grandmother's words from long ago, words she'd whispered when I was a child afraid of losing. "When someone tears you down, sweetheart, use the pieces to build something they can't destroy." So I did. The next morning, with swollen eyes and trembling hands, I wore a simple white gown borrowed from a boutique owner who'd heard my story. And I walked down that aisle anyway, not in the dress I'd dreamed of, but in the strength I never knew I had. After the wedding, life didn't unfold like a fairy tale. Daniel and I were happy, yes, but something inside me had changed. That day, standing in a borrowed gown, promising forever while my heart still ached, had burned a quiet determination into me. I promised myself that I would never again let anyone, not even family, have the power to tear me apart. A few months later, while sorting through wedding photos, I stumbled on the ruined dress. My mother had folded it neatly into a box, hoping I'd never have to see it again. But when I touched the shredded lace, I didn't feel pain anymore. I felt inspiration. That night, I stayed up sketching designs, softer seams, stronger stitches, new shapes that spoke of resilience. What began as therapy turned into obsession. I signed up for evening classes in fashion design, juggling my full-time job and sleepless nights spent bent over a sewing machine Daniel had surprised me with. The hum of the machine became my heartbeat. Every torn edge I mended reminded me of what I'd survived. When I finished my first original gown, I sent it to a local bridal boutique, just to see if it was good enough. To my shock, they called back the next day. "Whoever made this," the owner said, "understands heartbreak and beauty in the same breath." That one call led to my first commission. Then another. Within a year, I was freelancing as a designer under a small pseudonym, Lacey Bloom Designs. My little secret. Money was tight, but the satisfaction was intoxicating. I'd come home from long shifts at my marketing job, slip off my heels, and dive into fabric swatches until dawn. There were moments I doubted myself, especially when Madison's life looked so perfect online. She'd become a bridal consultant, flaunting photos with smiling brides and champagne glasses, pretending she owned the dream I was actually living. Daniel knew the truth, though. He'd bring me coffee at 2 a.m., kiss the top of my head, and whisper, "One day, people will wear your dresses and never know the pain that made them." And he was right. Within 3 years, my designs appeared in a Seattle bridal magazine. Then, in a moment that felt unreal, I was invited to design an entire collection for a new luxury boutique on the condition that I move under my own label. That was the day Claire Bennett Designs was born. I didn't tell my family, not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed space to breathe. They still thought I was dabbling in small creative projects. I let them believe that. It was easier. Quiet success is a kind of power. What Madison didn't know was that every time she posted another photo of a bride in a dress she helped choose, half of those gowns were mine. She had been unknowingly promoting my work all along. And in that beautiful irony, I found peace for a while. It happened on a Thursday, the same day of the week my life had first splintered years ago. I'd just finished a fitting with one of my high-profile clients when my assistant, Mia, poked her head into my studio. "There's someone here to see you," she said softly. "She says she's your sister." My breath caught. Madison. I hadn't seen her in almost 4 years. Not since she'd left Seattle to chase a so-called career in bridal consulting, hopping from city to city with a kind of glamorous chaos that photographed well but felt hollow beneath the filter. When she stepped into my office, she looked smaller somehow, still beautiful, but tired. Her hair was shorter, her smile tight, her eyes darting around the room like she was searching for somewhere safe to land. "Claire," she breathed. "Wow, this place is different." I finished for her. Sunlight spilled across the room, catching on the crystal chandelier and the rows of gowns displayed along the wall. Silk, satin, lace, all custom, all mine. Framed magazine covers lined the opposite side. One showed me smiling beside the headline, "The Woman Redefining Modern Bridal, Claire Bennett." Madison's eyes widened, her lips parting. This is all yours?" I nodded slowly, savoring the silence that followed. Every stitch. She looked like she might faint. I didn't know. "I thought you were still struggling," I offered. My voice was even, not cruel. "Just calm." "You assumed I stayed broken." Her gaze dropped to the floor. "I never meant to ruin me," I said softly, stepping closer. "You cut my wedding dress, Madison. You didn't just ruin fabric. You ruined a piece of my heart that day." Tears welled in her eyes. "I was jealous, okay? I saw you happy, loved, perfect, and I hated myself for not having that. I told myself it was just a stupid dress. I didn't think that I'd find a way to sew it back together." I interrupted. A small smile tugged at my lips. "Turns out, destruction makes room for creation." She let out a shaky laugh through her tears. "God, Claire, you're famous. This is incredible." I walked over to one of the mannequins and traced my fingers along the beaded bodice. "You know what's funny? Some of the boutiques you consulted for actually carried my designs. You've been promoting my work for years without realizing it." Her face flushed red, embarrassment, disbelief, a hint of awe. "You're kidding." "No," I said, meeting her gaze. "But maybe fate has a wicked sense of humor." Madison sank into the velvet chair across from my desk, her voice breaking. I came here because I lost my job. The boutique in LA shut down, and I don't know what to do next. I thought maybe you could help. For a long moment, I just watched her. The old me, the one before the shredded dress, would have said yes immediately. But the woman standing here now had learned to draw lines. I exhaled slowly. I might have something for you, I said. But not the way you think. She blinked. What do you mean? I gestured to the gowns. I'm opening a mentorship program for young designers. It's hard work, long hours, no glamour. You'd start at the bottom, learning the business from scratch. If you want a real career in fashion, not just posing beside it, that's your chance. Her chin trembled. You'd actually give me that chance? I smiled faintly. I'm giving you what you once took from me, a beginning. What you do with it is up to you. Madison's tears spilled over. Claire, I don't deserve this. No, I said softly, but maybe you're ready to earn it. And as she nodded, broken but hopeful, I felt something loosen in my chest, the weight of years finally lifting. Madison started the following Monday. I watched her arrive 15 minutes early, clutching a notebook and wearing the same nervous smile I used to hide behind when I was starting out. She looked out of place among the interns, too polished for the grunt work, but to her credit, she didn't complain. Not once. At first, I kept my distance. I wanted to see who she was without my shadow shaping her. She swept floors, organized fabrics, fetched coffee, and pinned lace for fittings. The others had no idea she was my sister. I introduced her simply as Madison, apprentice designer. Days passed, then weeks. She worked quietly, diligently, and I noticed her posture begin to change, less arrogance, more humility. When she pricked her finger one afternoon and muttered, "Guess karma's got a sense of humor," I almost laughed. Still, I knew forgiveness couldn't exist without boundaries. One evening, after the studio closed, I asked her to stay. We sat across from each other at the long cutting table, surrounded by scraps of silk and the faint hum of the city outside. "You've come a long way," I began. "But if you really want to stay here, we need to be clear about a few things." She nodded, wide-eyed. "First," I said, "you need to stop living through other people's dreams. Find your own vision. Not mine, not anyone else's. Second, if you ever start comparing again, I want you to remember this feeling, working your way up. Let it ground you, not shame you. Third," I hesitated, then softened. "Third, I need you to forgive yourself. You can't build anything from guilt." Her eyes filled with tears again. "I don't deserve that kind of grace." "Maybe not," I said gently, "but I'm giving it anyway. Because forgiveness isn't for you, Madison. It's for me." She looked down, biting her lip. "Thank you, Claire, for not giving up on me when I gave up on you." I smiled faintly. "I didn't do this for you. I did it because I refuse to be the kind of woman who carries bitterness into her future." That night, I handed her a box wrapped in white ribbon. Inside was a single piece of fabric, the last intact swatch from my ruined wedding dress. Her breath hitched. "You kept it. It reminds me where I started," I said. "I want you to have it. So something new with it. Something that's yours." For a moment, she just stared at it, her fingers trembling. Then she whispered, "I will." When she left the studio, I stood by the window and watched her disappear into the blur of city lights. I didn't feel triumphant or vengeful, just steady. For the first time, our story wasn't about rivalry or revenge. It was about reclamation, of self, of sisterhood, of the strength that comes from letting go without forgetting. A year later, I stood in the same studio. Only this time, it was filled with music, laughter, and the quiet hum of celebration. Claire Bennett Designs had just launched its 5th bridal collection, and the air buzzed with the soft chaos of success. Cameras flashed, models glided across the showroom, and somewhere in the corner, Madison was smiling, genuinely smiling, as she adjusted the hem of a gown she designed herself. It was stunning. Soft blush silk, hand-stitched lace, and a single embroidered panel made from the fabric I'd given her, the one that had once been part of my ruined wedding dress. When she showed it to me earlier that evening, I'd barely managed to speak. "It's beautiful," I whispered. She smiled through tears. "It's called rebirth." And for the first time, I understood. She wasn't trying to outshine me anymore. She was learning to create from her own light. After the event, as the crowd thinned and the champagne glasses emptied, I found myself alone near the window, the same place I'd stood so many times, staring out at the Seattle skyline. The city lights shimmered below like tiny stars that had fallen just close enough to touch. I thought about everything that had led here: the shredded lace, the heartbreak, the anger, the forgiveness. The girl who'd cried on her wedding night had grown into a woman who could stand tall in her own strength, her own peace. Madison walked up quietly beside me. "I never said it properly," she murmured. "I'm sorry, Claire. For everything." I looked at her and saw not the sister who'd cut my dress, but the woman who'd sown her own redemption. "You already said it," I replied softly. "Every day you showed up, you said it." We stood there for a while, watching the rain fall against the glass, gentle, rhythmic, cleansing. In that moment, I realized forgiveness doesn't erase the past, it transforms it. Every wound, every tear in the fabric of my life had been stitched back stronger. The irony wasn't lost on me. My sister had once destroyed my wedding dress, and somehow that act had led us both here, to beauty, to healing, to something whole again. I smiled faintly, my voice calm but sure, knowing the words would echo long after the lights dimmed. She tried to ruin my wedding by cutting my dress apart, but in the end, she only helped me so the woman I was always meant to become. And that was the real beginning.